Our committee meeting. This is an Education and Human Resources Committee meeting. With me, I have Councilor Amir. Oh my God,
Counselor Gathers.
Gathers. Thank you. I'm sorry. and Councilor
I did the same
Hogan.
thing to him. Yeah.
And we have from our HR department, Richard Albers, and then we have also Frank Aliva to take us through the process you already started, I hear. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm a blank.
Yeah, it happens. It happens.
Thank you, councilors. I'm working really hard.
Oh, it's okay. It's just us. There you go. Yeah, I blanked out completely. That means I need another vacation.
All right. I'm good. Thank you. Thanks. I do. Thank you. Appreciate it. Wow. I haven't been here since the new technology. So thanks, councilors, for the opportunity to talk a little bit about where we are in our journey through human resources, particularly around employees and employment. During the budget process, we spent a lot of time talking with you about some of the frustration some of our department heads are feeling with their ability to find employees and the number of vacancies that we have. And we also talked a little bit about the difficulty we have in getting the specifics around the data around all of that. So while we have not even come close to solving those problems as of yet, thought we'd give you a little bit of an update about some of the investments that we have made and that we are making, and maybe some of the then have some conversation around some of the other aspects of it. So I'm going to take an opportunity to pat the gentleman to my right on the back. Rick has really, we brought Rick on to really spend some time doing two things. To take a look at our employment generally and our ability to bring employees on and find the right employees, and to look at operations. In the year and 4 months that Rick's been with us, he has made just tremendous strides and changes in our human resources department, and really dragged us in some ways kicking and screaming from the dark ages into something that is more a modern human resources department. He has really done a tremendous job. He has begun an initiative that we are calling the aspiration to be an employer of choice. You see the vision for that initiative on the screen, looking to be the first choice destination for the highest caliber of employee that the region has to offer. And that is not an easy job. I think those of us who have some gray hair or some loss of hair will remember when folks would line up in droves to be, I looked at no one in particular, Councilor Hogan. I was looking in the mirror. There was a time when folks lined up in droves for jobs at the city. That is no longer the case. I mean, and whether it should be the case or not, it isn't. And we need to recognize that reality. The job market has changed. The type of applicant who is interested in public service has changed. The city's financial position has changed, and we need to recognize those realities. So this entire initiative of being an employer of choice really is a very comprehensive one. I am going to let Rick take over and talk about our strategy overall.
Thanks, Frank. So the strategy is the basics of HR is to attract, retain, and motivate our employees. And listed up there, you'll see some of the initiatives we're taking to do each of those. So attracting folks to the city, we need to have competitive salaries, we need to have. Can you make that a little bit bigger? Sorry. Is there a start slideshow on the?
Our slideshow, got it.
Do you want to? We thought it was going to work, but apparently not.
Oh, let's start over. Sorry, my eyes are bad, so.
He's got to move it forward.
Thank
It's
you.
okay. Better, right?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. Yes.
Is that better? All right, perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So we need competitive salaries. We're looking at the idea of condensed work schedules. We provide a work-life balance for folks and a positive employee experience. So those are the things we need, and that positive employee experience is from the minute somebody applies for a job or even thinks about applying for a job through retirement or exiting the city. And then to retain, we need to drive accountability, continue to drive engagement. We need to continually assess and reassess our benefits, and then continue to push for more safety initiatives. And then to motivate, I believe it's supposed to say professional development. So professional development, creating a positive culture, performance management, and transparent practices and processes. So what we're here to talk about is one piece of this puzzle that we are continuing to push. But I think it's important to view the entire strategy and not just one piece. So competitive salaries is the topic at the moment. I'm sure everybody saw what was posted. So, but like I said, it is one piece of the puzzle, and the entire strategy, all of these things are what's going to make us the employer of choice, not just one thing on this list. So, oops, go ahead.
Let me ask you a question.
Absolutely.
So in terms of competitive salaries, how far off are we from other potential, equal?
So it varied. It averaged about 20%. So that is, and there's a wide variety of jobs that we looked at. So respectfully, it varies greatly by grade and responsibility. Absolutely. So the way we are addressing the competitive salaries is by engaging HR Works, which we've already done. They've got 25 plus years of experience. We worked with a consultant named Mark DeRicki, fantastic work. And what we did was we took a look at job titles, responsibilities, and descriptions here at the city. And we sent that to department heads and senior staff to review, add anything, or adjust anything that needed to be adjusted. And the reason we looked internally first was to compare, to create a way to compare apples and oranges, right? So there are so many jobs in the city of Syracuse that are specific to the city of Syracuse, or the competitive market is not in Syracuse. So we, and in the first attempt to compare apples to oranges, need to look at our own apples to make sure that we can compare them. From there, we created essentially a crosswalk so that looking at the external market and saying, okay, our jobs are this apple. How do we find an orange that is close enough to, or is actually an apple? So we looked at the external data of those things. Job titles, it doesn't tell the full story. So we did the same thing with external, went to responsibility descriptions, and then sat down and reviewed that as a whole. Then that consultant essentially from there was able to say, okay, we can now compare these two jobs, and this is what the external market looks like for that job, which is ideally the 50th percentile. It's a traditional bell curve, and our strategy is to target as close to the 50th percentile as we could, which means we're competitive with not just public sector in the area, but private sector as well. And that is, to the point below, a true replacement value. So if we were to go to the market for that job, what would it cost us to find that job, find a qualified candidate, and in a reasonable time frame? From there, we assessed all of the positions. We benchmarked everything. We created a new salary structure, a new pay structure. And we found that 148 positions were below market value, 37 positions were at or above, and we had 24 vacant positions in the non-union space.
So is that all of the non-union positions or just 210 out of the total? 210 out of a total?
So 210 is the non-union positions.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And it's about 10% of
The
our
only
workforce.
small full-time. We haven't done part-time yet. We still need to do non-union part-time positions, but this was the universe of full-time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So to find out about the vacant positions, is that a challenge? Do you struggle? Do people tell you? Departments report? How does that happen?
They do, usually not timely. So
They report, but not timely.
correct.
Okay.
And so, which is part of the difficulty that we have and we've had in previous meetings, is that not having technology to rely on and help us communicate that data. It took us, so we've been working on this project for 11 months. In the last month, we've spent more time adjusting in the last month
That
because
would just be an email saying no, okay.
in theory it could, but us not having, again, we would have to devote a full-time person to answer emails.
So there's no one to receive it. Got it.
Right. So we would have to have a full-time position receiving any updates and things like that.
So that can update the data.
Right. So we could find ways, and we're trying, but like I said, we've had more adjustments in the last month because data changes so fast here at the city, but the process takes too long. So when I could have IT run a report right now, and it's going to be outdated by the time, because we'll get it in 3 days, 4 days. We have to run it through a help desk ticket, just like everybody else. And by the time that comes through, we've already hired 10 people, or 10 people have left, or 4 people left and 10 people were hired, or there was a title change.
I was just going to ask you that. So when there's a new vacancy, then departments probably take the opportunity to revamp job descriptions. Who do we really need? What for?
Absolutely.
And maybe that's the delay right there to get that work done.
So it is exactly correct, Counselor. It is touched by so many people before it even gets keyed into the system. And it gets, in fairness, gets keyed into multiple places. So even if the position were going to stay exactly the same, it goes into one system. When the department finally finds 3 days after the vacancy, they find the time to do it. They do a system that notifies and allows for the approval process. But then once that position goes out for hire, we use a third-party system to try and advertise it. And then once we do hire, we have to go through an onboarding process, which requires us to access AS400. It is multiple systems, multiple people, and
So before we get a vacancy, an employee, then it could be like, what, 6 months?
no, it's not. Probably not 6 months, but my goal has been from the time that a department notifies human resources of a vacancy to the time that we post it is 10 business days. We ought to be able to do that in 2 days. The fact that we have to take 10 days to do it, then post the position, and then hiring itself can take an exceptional long time. So, and then prior to the new compensation program, attracting an employee or an applicant who's interested in the position could be months.
Is there no room to plan ahead at all, Frank? I mean, like if somebody, like I imagine our finance commissioner, when he left, obviously somebody where he went to, somebody must have called and said, what's the story on this guy? Is he a good worker or not? Nobody tipped you off at all?
No.
Really?
No. But even
It's a pretty
with
small town, Frank. I'm surprised.
I hear you, Counselor. Even with notice, traditionally, the policy has been positions are not posted until they're vacant.
Oh, I know that.
But we've, we try to, we'll start looking unofficially when we know a position might become vacant, but it's still, I mean, we're doing that with a couple positions now, but it is still a very cumbersome, long process. Yeah. So just to reiterate the point that Rick just made, the most significant time lag on the compensation process was the ability for us to get at data and get at good data and get that to the consultant so that he could do his job. And 11 months, it probably should have taken half that time. So that's the other piece of the puzzle is we're looking to invest significantly in modernizing our operations, or what the folks in the field call the Human Resources Information System. The city has never had an HRIS system. HRIS systems have been around. I think the first one that I saw installed was just as I was leaving KeyBank in 1997. They were installing PeopleSoft. So that's A, how old PeopleSoft is, and B, how old Human Resources Information Systems, and C, the city didn't choose to turn on we've owned it, but we've never turned on the HRIS portion of PeopleSoft in all the years that we've owned it. So we are completely a paper-driven with some Excel spreadsheets system.
So if we're turning into HRIS, it means we're leaving completely the other one, or?
There's in the human resources space, we're starting from scratch. There is nothing to build on. So that's the other reason that we brought Rick in, is because of his familiarity with HRIS systems. So right now, we have a payroll system. We have AS400. Talk about that in a second. We have no talent management system. We have no workforce management system. Had an interesting conversation last evening with the consultants that we're working with on the operations, and the lead consultant has got about 25, 30 years experience just in payroll, and works for Ernst & Young, a national consulting and audit company. And he stopped in the middle of the conversation and said, I need to tell you that it is, if somebody told me that an employer with a couple thousand employees was still running on AS400 in 2023, I would tell them that they were lying to me, that there is physically no way to run a payroll on AS400 45 years after that system was introduced. And to some extent, he's right. Mike Cannizzaro and his payroll folks run so many side calculations. We have 9 union contracts, each with their own complexities, each with their own sets of benefits and special pays. We struggle to meet anytime we have to write a special check. It takes at least a week. If we have to error correct somebody's paycheck, it takes at least a week to do that. There is literally as much programming involved in issuing a replacement check as there is mathematical calculation. It is truly, payroll is both a finance function, but it is also a technology function, and it shouldn't be that way. A modern payroll system should be able to issue a corrective check within hours, and it takes us a week. So AS400 has, let's just be kind and say, it served us well. It's time to put it out to pasture.
So let me ask you this, and this may be a little bit off topic,
No,
and maybe.
please.
So we've been working with the workers' compensation folks to get that third party. So are these two different monsters? Because if we don't have any workforce support systems, does that impact that?
So it doesn't directly impact it, but we're not able to, in workers' comp, we can't get them the data that they need from our payroll as quickly because we don't have a system. So we have to go through multiple iterations just to get them the information they need to put into their systems, and vice versa. So we have no comprehensive view of any of our costs around employees.
And they know this.
Oh, yes.
When we hire that third party.
They do,
Okay.
without question. So where are we headed? So we're headed to a new payroll system that will integrate with the time and attendance system that we've been installing. You've heard it called Kronos. We now call it affectionately Syracuse Workforce Central. The new payroll system will integrate with that time and attendance so that we will have an automatic flow with a single input. Folks will fill out a timesheet or punch a clock online. That will automatically flow into a time and attendance system, assign the appropriate pay codes, and then flow into a payroll system that will be able to automatically pay them and take the next step, integrate with finance. So right now, instead of inputting either in multiple places or even worse, taking a batch. So with, give you public safety overtime is a great example. We couldn't look at a transaction level. I couldn't look at any individual's overtime in our financial system. The only way we can find that is in a system that the fire department runs, because all they send us is a batch of information. We use that to write the checks, and then it never hits our accounting system. Those are all maintained in separate systems. So you've got a separate time and attendance system, payroll system, accounting system. What we're shooting for is a single stream of information that will ultimately flow where it belongs in our accounting system so that we can provide you with reports and a view to that. From a talent standpoint,
So an applicant tracking system or a talent module for an HRIS would essentially do the same thing, where we would allow, or would allow us to have essentially a central database for all of our talent. It would help us with recruiting. We would have our own job pages rather than reaching out to Indeed specifically. It would still post to Indeed. It pushes to 218 different job boards. So it gets our name out there. There is learning and career development modules. There's performance management. There's a compensation piece. There is succession planning, all of the things that we're lacking because we lack the data to, we just lack data. So succession planning is an easy one to point out. We've had this discussion before, that we should be able to look at, easily pull data and say, okay, who are we looking at, or who can we anticipate retiring in the next year? And what's our plan going to be to backfill those positions so that it doesn't become vacant? I find out 3 weeks later, we try to get it posted, and then we don't have anything hired for another year or year and a half. There's a lot of positions that have been vacant like that. So looking and planning ahead, what are we going to do ahead of time to make sure that we have a plan in place? But to pull a report with everybody's age and anticipated retirement date, A, doesn't exist. It's not an AS400. And B, we would have to do all that manually, where it should be an export that comes out of that system and is emailed to me directly every single month. So that's the goal. Yep. Okay. And that's what any modern system will do, but we don't even have the data, let alone the ability to pull it.
Well, how much more money is this going to cost us, Frank?
So you've approved us to do the phase one, which is the planning, getting the data together, taking a look at AS400 and what data we have and how to clean that up and get that out. That'll be somewhere just over $1 million over the next couple of months. And then our goal is to have the payroll and HCM systems up and running sometime next year. I can show you actually the timeline.
Is that part of phase one, or that already phase two?
So that is actually, this is phase, they call it, the consultants call it phase zero. So we've engaged Ernst & Young, and they're starting to do, or they've done phase zero, excuse me, which they completed in early summer, which was to benchmark where we are currently. All of our processes, all of our data, they now know the lay of the land. The next thing that they'll start working on in the next week or so is to start moving us to the solution, which will be Oracle Cloud. Oracle Cloud is, so PeopleSoft is now owned by Oracle. It's one of the largest database companies in the world. And Oracle Cloud is, PeopleSoft has At some point, an end of life. They've pushed it a few times. It was originally 2025. I think it's now 2027.
Is that within the 1 million?
So this is the number 2 here is what we're working on now, which is phase 1 and 2, which is the design and the development, which we're targeting for. The first gate will be the end of this year, and then the next gate will be early in 2024. So that's when we'll begin to set it up. We'll begin to integrate it with our payroll system, or excuse me, our time and attendance system, and get that work done. And then the third piece will be the entire human resources platform that will be compatible. With the same time, we're on a path to look for our next finance accounting solution. Is that going to be PeopleSoft, which we fix in place, or is that going to be going to a new system? But whatever we choose in finance, the human resources system will be able to meet it directly, and that's targeted for mid-2024. So that's from a timing standpoint. I wish I could answer, Councilor Hogan, your question directly. We know that what we spend on phase 1, about $500,000, or number 1, excuse me, up there, about $500,000. Number 2, be somewhere between $1.4 million, $1.6 million, plus licensing fees. 3, I don't know the answer to, because we don't know how much work's going to be involved. That's going to be dependent on what they find in item 2, how much work it's going to take to put our policies in place, how much work it's going to be to get our data out of AS400. There's so many variables there, but it's not going to be inexpensive. My guess is probably somewhere in an additional $1 million range. So all in will be somewhere in the maybe $3.5 million range for the entire project.
And it'll encompass all the employees.
It'll encompass all employees, union, non-union. It will give us a modern human resources platform, data in, data out, transparency, visibility. That's where we are.
Pretty sure the rest of the council will be pretty happy to hear about this new system. Well, or updated stuff. So, Rick, Frank was great.
Thanks.
We've made progress from the last conversation we had.
We have made progress. Rick has made progress. Rick and his team have done all of the heavy lifting here. Great thanks to the mayor and the council for allowing us the funding to do this. It's absolutely necessary if we're going to attract employees. I will tell you, Councilor, we've heard this morning just with the new compensation plan. The anecdotes at the mayor's department head meeting this morning were about employees that have been saved because they were planning on leaving because of compensation, who've decided that they wanted to stay. Applicants who said, yeah, I'm not interested at that price point, have come back and said, hey, would you reconsider me now that you've got the new compensation plan? I'm interested. So we're seeing the impact. It's all anecdotal at this point, but it's good anecdotes, and it feels like we're getting some traction.
And to have one person dedicated, as you was mentioned at the very beginning, to receive from all the departments the data you need to, then plug in. So how much would that cost us? What's that?
Like a salary for that, probably somebody in the $50,000 to $60,000 salary range. But again, it would still be, it's all, because the problem is not just the missing data, it's how fast can we get data. So whenever I bring reports, like the 24 vacancies is probably outdated at this point. And we just ran that number. Well, we've been running it for a month, making sure that we were getting everybody for the comp study, and every day it's different. And then you get to the end and you're like, we finally got the number, and we run the report one more time, and there's 3 more vacancies and 4 new people.
But that would be, is that a position you would like to have in your department or no?
So yes and no. So the plan is to have somebody that is using the system to be able to pull us real-time data but that person will do more than just house that data. It's kind of a HR help desk meets the systems, meets pulling data. We would have somebody that handles all of that and is going to help us get this off the ground and actually have a platform that's usable and sustainable.
So in essence, with the $3 million as far as capital cost, and then is there a figure on if we get everybody to the level that they're supposed to be? Is there sort of a ballpark figure of how much that's going to cost us per year?
On the salary adjustments?
Yeah.
Yes. So
1.67.
1.67?
that's salary only, not fringe.
Okay, and so will there be, and of course, we only get to vote on the money. We don't get to vote on particular, not that we would want or anything like that. And I believe personally, we should pay people what they're worth. And I think a lot of us are aware of the paucity of like getting good people in
Yes,
these
sir.
jobs. Will there be an expectation placed upon those people, since this is a 24-hour operation? And I'll tell you, your administration especially has been very receptive. Oftentimes, I'm at a committee, a neighborhood meeting at night, and I need an answer from like Jake Dishaw. I'll text him 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and he'll get right back to me.
That's good to hear.
So, I'll tell you, that's happened across the board and a lot of the police department, fire department, but that's happened across the board with a lot of your people, including the guy the bald-headed guy in the corner there. And I think I've actually texted you and stuff.
So Counselor, you are speaking Rick's language. Rick, in every conversation I have with Rick, he'll say to me, yes, compensation, but yes, performance management and accountability. It's two sides of the same coin. So without question, they all go hand in
There'll be an
hand.
expectation
Yes,
that,
sir.
Please respond,
Unquestionably. Particularly in there's a middle group of folks. So the highly compensated professionals respond that way anyways. But there's that middle group of folks who feel like, okay, I'm here, I'm doing public service. Yes, I get great benefits, but I've been paid at 20 or 25, or in some cases 30% below market for so long. They think twice before they make that. Now, they're not going to think twice before they make that response at 7 p.m. It's going to be, this is what I signed up for, and the city's keeping up its end of the bargain. I'm going to keep up on mine.
I think most of the people you're aiming for are going to be responsive.
Yes.
And I just want to make sure that, that's,
Yep.
they're made aware of that.
Yep. So professional development, performance management, accountability, all of that goes hand in hand with compensation, without question.
So one of the things that you mentioned also at the beginning was the engagement to, keep people. So how do you do that? What do you do?
There's a lot. There's no silver bullet for that. So it's a series of initiatives engagement kind of encompasses all of the things that we talked about and more. So part of engagement is getting people in the door that are engaged to begin with because they're being paid fairly, and that's a small piece of engagement. Then education seems like it wouldn't be an engagement piece, but it's a big piece of engagement, making sure people are aware of their benefits, making sure people understand them, they can use them properly, engaging them in that process. Another piece is self-service. So the hope is with this technology that people can do things themselves. You don't need to come tell me that you moved from Tip Hill to Eastwood or the other way around. They can go do it
Nobody moves
themselves.
from Tip Hill to Eastwood. It's usually the other way around.
There's a couple smart
I knew that
people.
was going to be controversial to say. It was, so people can go do that themselves, engage the system, and take control of things that are happening in their life and the piece that affects work and vice versa. So there's a lot that goes into it, and we're working on a whole slew of initiatives with the deputy mayor, with the mayor, looking at housing opportunities, looking at all sorts of things that will help drive some sort of engagement in the workforce.
One of the other pieces, though, one that I've spent a lot of time focusing on is just professional development. Our professional development opportunities have always been very ad hoc, and hiring somebody, Rick has an open position for a professional development coordinator who can really help us with fellowships, internships, doing internal training, looking for external training opportunities like the one that the council supported with the Center State leadership, expanding our participation in LGS. Those are all great engagement opportunities. A lot of other companies have used employee resource groups, which is a whole thing over the last decade or so around engagement. So there's a whole body of literature and a whole body of experience that other employers have, that we can follow along.
Something like a wellness day every once in a while.
Our wellness group, I will tell you, what a home run. And again, I'll pat Rick and his team on the back. Reviving our wellness group, they are so engaged. It's union and non-union. They are really excited. They have been doing tremendous work. I think they've had 4 meetings, and they've accomplished more in 4 meetings than we probably accomplished in 4 years. It's a great group of folks who are really committed to the whole vision of wellness for themselves and for their colleagues. It's helped that that Excelis has given us a budget out of the money that we pay them to help subsidize those activities. But yes, that's a great example of engagement counselor.
Along those lines, Rick, where do we stand with our retirees accessing? You heard any kind of feedback with issues regarding that because of the split between United Healthcare and the St. Joe's?
We did initially, but our plan is rich enough that those folks can still be seen as out of network without any impact financially.
Heard about the retirees having issues with their doctors? Okay.
Nope, their doctors have been all pulling them in as out of network, which again,
Usually I haven't heard anything either.
yeah. At first, it was more so concern, but once people understood that they could be billed out of network, there's no financial impact on them. It's just how the paperwork is processed in the background. It's been seamless.
Our hope is that they stop negotiating in the newspaper and are actually sitting down and talking to each other. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that's happening.
One last thing, as far as the recruitment aspect goes, underneath the talent tab that you had there, what were you said there's 7 platforms that you use, that the software would use to reach out for applicants, or?
Like 200 plus.
Oh, 200 plus. Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
So Indeed is, not to bash Indeed, it's great, but
Right.
it can't be our only source.
Right.
So it shoots to all the aggregates, specialized, non-specialized, wherever we want it to go.
Okay. So you get to choose, or do they have a basic package?
There's a basic package, and then there's certain things like engineering you want to send to dice.com because that's an engineering group. And so you can have the base package plus specialized for each position if you want to, or you can have it go to everybody regardless. And then sometimes Dice will kick something back saying that's not engineering, we're not going to post it, and we're fine with that.
And is there a strategy that we make a effort to make sure that our workforce is diversified as far as this goes, right?
Absolutely. Because we'll be able to see that data, and moving towards what things should be, HR will house that, maintain that data. And when we share applications with hiring managers, that information won't be on there. So hiring managers will see just the jobs that somebody's worked in, the experience somebody has, their education, and that's it. No names associated, no identifying information, so that it is truly, yeah.
So how long are we working with this consulting firm? They're doing great.
Ernst & Young so Ernst & Young did the first phase of HRIS, finished up early in the summer, late in the spring. Boy, they just knocked it out of the park. I mean, they were not were they the lowest priced? They were pretty competitively priced, but we went with them because of their experience and because of the way that they laid out the consulting, and Rick had a ton of interaction with them, as did the folks in finance, and just a tremendous team of folks who really took the time to understand us. It wasn't about a very prescribed, this is the way we do it, and you've got it. It was, they listened to us, they heard us, they took the time, and they've done the same thing. This engagement, they wanted to get started in April because they were ready to go, and we weren't. And they've stuck with us and said, take your time, figure it out. Tell us what information you need. Candidly, they would have flown out here to be here today. They have been just tremendously responsive. And they've also, they haven't just been blowing smoke. They've been very quick to say, stop and think about what you just said, Frank. Was that really the question that you wanted to ask? They're very, very good.
All the time.
I know. I felt that was a gimme, Councilor Hogan. But they've done a great job for us. The other thing that we've done, and I probably should have pointed out, is this project, this initiative is gated. So there are major decision points along the way. So yes, if we decided, hey, we're going to stop, we have sunk costs, but we are never going to be in a position until we're committed that we're committed. We're not committing to the entire project, to the entire purpose. We will bring it back to you in stages so that you can ask, how's it going? What have you accomplished? Are they achieving their deliverables? Is this still the right direction? And we'll be able to give you an honest answer so that we're not asking you to spend the whole $3.5 million right now. We're asking you to do it in stages with specific deliverables. And we'll do the same thing with
And
the
they're gonna be
finance
with us all
enhancement.
through.
That's correct. Yep.
Is there anything, Richard, that you need right now that we're not giving you?
Nope. Everything's set for this. This is going to be huge for my team and our ability to pivot. Instead of now going and creating data, we can provide the customer service that we should have been providing to our departments. So we're on the right track. This is what we need.
A couple more hours in a day and a few hours sleep, I think, is what he'd like.
A good night's rest
I don't
would
think
be
he's, I don't think he slept in the last 4 days getting this compensation plan out. But other than that, thank you all. Appreciate the
Thank you
opportunity.
very much. Yes.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. That was great.
Thank you.